What we'd like to do next, unless there's some questions, I'd like to introduce Max Smith, and he's going to come up and tell us a little bit about that. Max?
Once in a while, maybe once in a lifetime, we have an opportunity to witness the spectacular. And in those circumstances, once in a while, we get an opportunity to participate. I've had the great privilege of, unbeknownst to me at the time, of being ushered in as Brian's pastor to circumstances in which I was brought into a confrontation which, from my perspective as a pastor, was clearly the hand of God at work. Once in a while, the circumstances are in those events are so clear that we have a difficult time explaining them, and other than we understand that God is at work, and we are given opportunities to recognize that. Those were the kind of circumstances we faced on December the 26th. Brian had come to my home to go to work with my two boys, parked his pickup in my driveway, was sitting out there eating the last of his breakfast, and everybody was joking per usual when off they collected themselves and off they went to work. Then about in the afternoon, the plans of the day kind of fell apart, and we were ushered into an event that was amazing. He was injured that day, and during his injuries and when they were attending to him, he made a statement from my perspective that could not have been more insightful, in which he said of those caring for him at that time that he trusted God. We could scarcely imagine at that time to what degree and what that meant for somebody to say that they trusted God. Don't know the extent of, at that time we still didn't know exactly the extent of his injuries. Today they asked me, and the original plans for our agenda today were to ask me to do an invocation. That's a really stuffy term for praying. I declined to do that for the reason that I wanted to make public my gratitude to God, and looking you in the eye at the same time to let you know from my perspective of what God has done. I want to have your full attention on those things, and with a real understanding about what has been accomplished here and what we're bringing here today to kind of allow you and encourage you to know something about. In that regard, I want you to understand the context of my gratefulness to God. I am grateful to God today for Brian's life. It hung in the balance a long time under circumstances that I'm not going to bother rehearsing for you today. Not that they're not significant, but it would just take a long time. For a long time, God's hand was there, with the result that at the end of it all, we saw this young man who was 97.5% what we would call a third-degree burn, called full-thickness burn. As far as I know today, probably the only living survivor of such a burn. I'm thankful to God for the facilities at Emmanuel Hospital and the physicians there who were given the skill and the facilities before this day come about. From my perspective, that's a provision of God. Other people may look at it as coincidence. That had the skill and the desire to care for him. They overcame some great adversity and personal adversity and things that we cannot even imagine. If I were to tell you about them today, you would be startled. I thank God for the mistakes that Dr. Polito made when he came to the family, and on that day said that Brian had less than 1 chance in 10 of living. Those odds to the family seemed appropriate to say, let's go for it. Later on he came back and said, I misspoke, it was really less than 1 chance in 1,000. I thank God for that mistake. I thank God for Brian's willingness to fight. He expressed it early on. I think that's a gift from God in his circumstances. And I thank God for his family who had the insight in all of this with all the information given to them to make the decision to allow him to fight for his life, because there was a great deal of people and a great deal of influence over them to say, no, it's really not appropriate. It's really not worth it. I thank God at that time for a young lady that stepped to his side. Young lady, his soulmate, already having formed a commitment in her life to stand by her man. Haley was there, and she was there big time. Not a casual observer. She was there with the family. She had been given by God the strength and commitment to endure what very few people would be able to endure. Janie, I thank God for you. As Brian's mother, God gave her some abilities as counselor which you could not believe when, in the latter stages of when Brian finally came out of his coma and began to learn of his injuries. It's a wise mother that was able to respond to those at that given opportunity and time to deflect what might have turned into any kind of self-pity and recapture his courage and his commitment to move on. I thank God for Mo, Brian's dad. All this enthusiasm, all this determination, steady, holding everything together, running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to Portland. Optimistic all the time, always encouraged by things, and sometimes you wonder, Mo, I'm not even sure why you should be encouraged, but still you're encouraged. And I thank God for him. I thank God for Brian's family, their whole family, Grandpa's brothers and sisters, everybody coming together, Haley's side of the family, everybody coming together, and the strength that there was given to them to come together and to endure this thing. I thank God for Brian's faith family. In the early days in the hospital, it was a situation that the hospital, I'm not sure, was quite prepared for. This flood of people in the halls, and at the drop of the hat, all they would do is they would hold hands and pray, and they would get together and they would cry and they would hold hands and pray, and then they would go off in groups and do more of it and more of it. And it was not that they were praying for Brian to be whole and well and all the rest of that stuff. That wasn't the focus. The focus was simply that, God, you have your hand in this. When all is said and done, I want God to be honored. That's why I'm telling you these things today. It's my intention that God be honored. I'm thankful to God for Brian, for his attitude that God has given him, an attitude that has a heart for others, a willingness to help and share. We've already seen that in the service that was given to us right around Thanksgiving time, where he acted for the benefit of others who were having physical trauma in their own lives. I thank God for Brian's courage. If you don't recognize this right now, if you haven't read enough stories to recognize this, I don't know, I'm not sure how we can communicate it to you today. This is uncommon courage, and from my perspective, given by an uncommon God. I am thankful to God for his perseverance. This has been a long road. And still, when I visited him yesterday, and I knocked at the door, and I hear, come on in! And here it is, and the next thing we know, we're talking together and laughing about this and that. And he has to endure some things in the way of therapy and the constant, and the threat of perhaps, more to come, and all those things, and still his perseverance is there. I thank God for his compassion for others. In the middle of this project, what do we have? We have a little request by him. By the way, I know what you want to do, but if there's anything left over, we'll talk more about it later. There's a place I wanted to go. It wasn't to him, it was to somebody else. I thank God for his sensitivity to the community. Many of you don't know this, but Brian knows what's going on in this community. I go there trying to explain to him some things, only to find out I'm behind the curve with what's going on, and he has to tell me exactly what has occurred in the community, because he knows more about what goes on than I know about what's going on. I don't know how he does that, but he does that. I thank God for his energy in community life. I don't know how many of you know, but he's out and about, and he's gone to the Rose Garden, and he goes to concerts, and he goes to here and there, and he goes to or the events in the community, and he comes to church. Comes to church whenever he can come to church, essentially every week. I thank God for his sense of duty and taking over responsibility. He is taking over additional responsibility. Responsibilities at this young stage in his life, at this young person, at this young couple, the responsibilities for home and making decisions about all these things about within the home, of making the house come together and house plans and discussing all those things. I thank God for a woman that God has given him. Her name is Haley. I thank God together that as husband and wife now, that God has brought them together and they are expressing continued faith and trust in God. This is not something you express on one day, faith and trust in God, and it goes away the next and think, oh, that's really great, that's about all there is to it. This is not that kind of event. So they still continue to trust God and they declare their faith. I thank God for the future for Brian. Did you hear that? I thank God for the future for Brian. This is a long ways from being over, folks. I'm not talking about it in terms of endurance of injuries and recovery from that. Brian's got the strength and health, I believe, to do that. God has granted him that. But as he continues to heal and to grow in strength, he continues to meet the challenges that are for him and Haley, and they are already marking out and being marked out for them, or their ministries to others. If you look at their mail, their incoming mail, you'll understand some of that as they get requests and dialogue from people all over the country, from Australia to wherever. They're all coming in, the people that want a little bit of their advice and counsel and encouragement from their lives. I thank God for Brian's overall health. His health is good. He's becoming more vigorous every day. His surgeries are over for a while. Progress continues on his prosthesis. His skin continues to heal. His attitude is excellent. This young man, I swear, he told me, he says, once in a while I feel like I should be depressed and like I'd almost like to be, but something doesn't allow me. It's exceptional. And I thank God for his perseverance. He attends St. Helens Community Bible Church almost every week. I thank God for his friends. They visit him almost weekly and he has them into his home. Brian's a great encouragement to me. I thank God right now for our community and the communities that participate here today. I thank God for your vision to propose such a project. I thank God for your generosity, the generosity that brought it from the realm of possibility to the realm of such a probability, even the realm of reality, in such a spectacular and wonderful manner. I thank God for your endurance, particularly the steering committee. I think got to put up with each other every single week, and they keep it up. And Brian was generous. He said it was an hour. We put up with it. Well, usually our hour meeting runs into 2 and then to 3, and then there's always something going on, and then you have all your work activities to do and your assignments for the meeting. So it's a wonderful thing to have endurance, and I'm grateful to the steering committee for their encouragement. I thank God for the community's compassion, which saw a need, rose to meet the opportunity. I thank God for your enthusiasm. We've seen some of that today. Boy, every day, somebody comes in with a new burst of enthusiasm and says, let's get it going, come on, and you pick up and off you march. I thank God for the labor of people. They work tirelessly, they propose to work. People are raising their hands and saying, just tell me, it's kind of like, where do I drive the nail? I'm there. And boy, I'm really grateful for that. It's already substantial, and yet it's still barely begun. I'm thankful to God for your willingness to participate, for your sacrifice to give of yourselves and to persevere in such things. I thank God for your presence here today and for the family and the friends and the community leaders that are here to show your interest and your support. You are the seed that is planted today. It's not going to just be contained to this room. It's going to grow from this room. I thank God for what has already begun in your hearts. I know and trust God that Brian and Haley are going to be useful to him and a credit to this community. They are valuable to us. I thank God for you all, and I thank God, creator of heaven and earth and of all things in them, for everything that has transpired. There's a verse, comes from Psalm 119, verse 68, that says of God, "You are good, and you do good. Teach me." I'm proposing to you that what we are together today for is to be taught of God, how great a God He is. And to that, before God, before you all, I am exceedingly grateful.
I think this is a good time to introduce Bob McGurk.
Hi, I'm the fundraising coordinator for this project. And first, I don't know about you, but I kind of want to give a hand. My background is I've been a healthcare consultant for a number of years, about 15 years. I've recently gone into doing development work, fundraising, as part of the things that I do. Right now I'm in a student program at Portland State, and I have two mentors in the community. So you have really people from Portland State and from United Way that are also supporting this project. I stand in a room, sit in a room that this is truly an amazing facility, and it was brought about by this community, and it's an appropriate place for a meeting. So let's talk a little bit about fundraising. You don't probably know me. Many of you who have worked on the committee do know me. It's called through relationship building. But for those of you who don't know me, we share something in common. We're all here today because we were asked. And that's why I'm involved as a volunteer in doing the fundraising here, is I was asked. And that's really the approach we're taking to our fundraising campaign. There's two parts of that. One is about relationships, which is why we're starting locally in this community and person to person. And the other is we're going to ask. We're going to ask people to help. What the campaign is about, you've seen the wonderful work that the architects have done, and Brian and Haley's dreams being presented on paper. And there's going to be a cost to this project, even though most of it is going to be volunteer work. So the campaign is about raising some cash, getting some materials donated, and donated labor. The entire project cost that we're looking at is about $400,000. Most of that is for the house. It's about $370,000 that would go into the house, and developing a maintenance fund for Brian and Haley to maintain the house, and then $30,000 in fundraising expense. Now, in terms of the fundraising expense, all the professional services, as I mentioned, I'm a volunteer, but all of the professional services have been donated to the campaign. So our actual, let's say, hard cash expenses will be probably in the $5,000 to possibly $7,000 or $8,000 range, and it's for paying for phones, and it's for paying for filing fees for the Attorney General's office, because when you run a fundraising program in Oregon, the state wants to make sure that you do it in an appropriate way. So we are organized to do that. We are a 501c3. We're actually a committee of the St. Helens Volunteer Firefighters Association. And they're a not-for-profit organization, and all contributions are tax deductible to that organization. We received that designation earlier this year, and we're registered with the state of Oregon. And just a special word of thanks to the Volunteer Firefighters Association. Not only do they devote their time and volunteer time to saving lives, but they also have this additional mission, and not just the Brian's House campaign, but a general mission of helping this community with issues surrounding firefighting through their volunteer efforts. Back to the campaign. We are now officially kicking the campaign off in this community. And we're looking at, for the cash part of the campaign, which is the part that we're focusing on now, of about a 60-day campaign focused around generating cash for the campaign. The money is needed, to give you some background on it. We got a lot of help from Habitat for Humanities, which is in the Let's Build a House for a Living in terms of charitable. That's their charitable mission. They have the experience. And where we came up with our cash requirements on this was that they typically will build a house of a value of about $125,000, and they recommended that about 25 to 30% of the funds, or of the house, even though they build with volunteer work, is necessary for cash requirements to buy special appliances, to pay for specialty services. You know, when you have a lot of volunteers there, you don't want everybody standing there waiting for one item. So that's what their recommendation for. Site development fees, planning fees, sewer hookup fees, etc. There's some cash requirements for the campaign. Our house is bigger because of really the special requirements of our situation. So they recommended a figure in the $40,000 to $50,000 range to have as a cash fund to build the house, and with the rest being donated labor and materials. The remainder of the funds were to be set up in a maintenance fund. And then at the close of the campaign, if there are funds remaining beyond those two needs, there will be, first donors would be contacted to see what they would want to have done with their donations. But then, in addition to that, remaining funds would go to the Legacy Emanuel Burn Center. So that's the way we've structured this campaign. But what I want to do is to make sure, as fundraising chair on this, is that we do reach our goal of build this house for Brian and Haley. And what we are suggesting as an approach, it's going to be a very low budget, low-cost campaign approach. There's a lot of interest in Brian and Haley, not just here, but when I was asked, I remember who Brian was. Wasn't he that boy that was burned in Columbia County in a fire? And when I talk to people about this, my classmates and professional contacts in the field, everybody knows about Brian. And the closer they get, really the more they want to know. And so there's a lot of regional interest. So we're going to be doing both a local and a regional media-based campaign, and meaning that there will be a lot of coverage. And we've set up a program starting with, one of really the first sponsors on this was the St. Helens Community Federal Credit Union. So we have an account that people can donate there, and that this will be handled in the media coverage. Also, because this is regional, perhaps national in scope, but certainly regional through Portland and other areas. We've set up an account with U.S. Bank, so any branch of U.S. Bank, people can donate to the Brian's House campaign. And then finally we have, in your packet, I won't bore you with details to write it down, but we have the address where direct payments can be made. And as I'd indicated, all of these are tax deductible. So how can you help here today, and what is the message we're going to put out to both the local community and the regional community? Well, one is through, as I mentioned, cash donations. The other is through materials donations and labor donations, which will occur a little bit later in the campaign after that first 60 days. And then other areas is events, is that people, organizations, and companies can, through their employees and through whatever other means that they have, arrange their own fundraising events to be able to help support this campaign. We do have examples of that, and John Wernicke from Boise Cascade is going to speak about some of those, and then I'll be available to answer questions for a couple of minutes.
Okay, we have several examples that we'd like to share of just some exciting things that are going on. First of all, I'm representing the 600 plus employees at the St. Helens Paper Mill, and we expect to have a huge amount of volunteer labor from that. And we have people with all kinds of skills down there. Lots of people have built their own homes, so a huge force there, and they're very giving people. But in conjunction with that, Bill Geron is going to be helping me in organizing that volunteer pool. Boise Cascade has come out just last week with a matching program where they will match cash contributions dollar for dollar up to $2,500 from our employees. So that's really exciting. And they're going to encourage volunteer time. My time coming to these meetings every week is being donated. Same with Bill Geron and Diane. Other examples, Columbia County and the local cities are going to sponsor golf tournament with proceeds going to Brian's house. And then just last week, we had Glenn Terrace from Leather Oil who proposed that for the month of June, every Wednesday, he's going to donate 4 cents a gallon for every gallon of gas he sells. And he's also going to challenge some other oil companies to do the same. But that's wonderful.
Yeah.
This time we're open for questions about fundraising. We'll turn it back to Bob.
Do you have any questions about how we're carrying out our campaign now, or if you feel uncomfortable asking them in the group, I will say that we have an individual donor contact forms, but this isn't just for donors. If there's questions that you have, if you could take one of these and fill it out, or comments or suggestions. This is a one-time campaign, so if we were doing this 10 times, we might recognize everybody. We might not stub our toes on a relationship. We want to apologize in advance. We are volunteers on this, but please take one of these. But do you have any questions? Okay, let me. I do feel that I should do a little bit of closing on this. I wanted to thank Diane Dillard for the work on the committee and from Boise. Diane's not feeling so well today, so otherwise she'd be a much bigger part of this presentation. And it's important to point out that we really are there in terms of being able to make this campaign work. There's some general rules in fundraising that before you hold an event, you're supposed to have a lot of funds raised or committed in. I'm having a hard time keeping track of that, but before the start of today, it was over $100,000 in donated services, materials, and actual cash. And in terms of the cash part of the campaign, what Habitat had indicated to us is before groundbreaking, we should have at least half of the money that we think we're going to need to support building the house. So that was the $50,000, about half of that in the bank, basically. And either in the bank or in the form of pledges, and which would be $25,000. And I'm keeping track in my head. We are very close to being there right now. So this is a campaign that is, thanks to the wonderful lead donation from Webco, the work of Legacy Health System, and with our banner, and all of the other donors. Do take a look at where we are on this donor list. Might give you an example of all the things that go into a project like this, such as insurance for the volunteers building the house. All of the things. The warehousing of materials. So we have commitment of space for warehousing. So just all of the things that would go into a campaign. Yes.
Since I got here late, I might have missed this, but do you have a start date at this time, or is it still dependent on getting this half of the $50,000?
Well, is Jeff here? We have a start date in mind, and it does. Right now, I would say it doesn't. I would say the campaign is not going to, which was one of my concerns, hold up a start date. We were looking for generally, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, of a start date in the fall. And it's based on all of the approvals, even building approvals of our plans, which we haven't done yet, but all of the approvals and the development of the property site, the planned unit development site, and then our own plan approvals and all of that for our individual building plans. So in the fall is what the best that we can estimate at this point.
Okay, just one other thing, I might have missed it, but Habitat for Humanity, they're not actually going to come out here and work on the project. They're giving you other logistical help.
They have provided us a number of forms, a lot of consulting, but We don't think we need help on, we have the people that, we have the people to build the house. And what they're helping us doing is that they do it with volunteers, and they were helping us do some of the preliminary work, and we run things by them about every 2 months to see if they have any suggestions for us. But the house will be built under direction of people in this community, and the expertise is here. Are there other questions? Well, I'd like to turn this over then to John Clem for the next portion of this.
Give myself a trap back there. My name's John Clem, and basically what I want to do is tell you that this is a local community project, and there will be people from outside our area that do contribute. But basically this is right here, this is the St. Helens Scappoose area project. And I think that this key, this is our first chart. We're all used to these for band trips and things like that, and computers that the kids are buying for high school. We decided we'd get one of these, and we keep track of our donations. And you'll see 2 or 3 of these around town mounted on plywood during the course of this campaign. And it's just sort of a reminder that for this project to work, you are the key. You are the key, I'm the key, our community is the key. I would like to ask Jeannie Sakultarawattn to come up, Brian's mom. And I would like to have Lori come up. And Jeff, could you come up? This is a special time right now because this represents the pledge that this committee, and that actually our community, is going to make Brian and Haley's house. Jeff, would you go ahead?
I feel very honored to present the plaque with the key from making the dream become a reality to Lori.
Thank you, Jeff. I feel honored to accept this key from Jeff, representing a very large milestone in this project, which I never dreamed in a million years would ever get this big. I promise I had no clue. The fact that the community has supported and embraced us and shown their love to Brian means more to me than just about anything that I can try to capture in words. I was very moved when I read about it. It was the type of thing that I was unable to ignore or get out of my mind. I woke up in the middle of the night many times after reading the initial article, and I kept thinking, I gotta write it down. Well, no, you don't want to do that. Don't stir up anything. And then I thought, well, you know, the Amish can raise a barn in a day. Why can't we build a cabin for them? So obviously it's kind of gotten past the cabin stage, but I really would like to present you with this key that represents the commitment of this community and myself and what Brian and your family have come to mean to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Court to come up, say a few words in closing, and maybe go over these packets that we have here.
I guess Max said it the best. Every now and then you get an opportunity to watch a miracle, and even less, you get an opportunity to participate. And I like that, and I think that's what we're being offered today. So I would ask you, please take advantage of this opportunity if you want to feel good about about what you're doing and feel good about the community and just feel good. I would highly encourage you to take this opportunity to be part of the miracle. I'd also encourage you to talk to your friends and neighbors and acquaintances and say, this is something great that I'm involved in, and I think you'd like to be involved in it too. So help us get the word out. Help us, all of us, to be a success. I'm not sure if in the packet is this donor contact form. If it's not, you could pass them out. Please fill it out. Anything that you can do, anything that you can donate, we could certainly use. As I said, help us to make this a reality. The fact sheet, I think, has all the information in it that you need about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we expect to do it. And, I suppose the last thing is if there's any questions about any of the project, I'd be glad to point out who could answer it. But I can point, so let me just throw it open to you. What kind of information do you need to help us to make this a success? I suppose if you have it, then we'll go ahead and close. So please fill out a contact form and join us in making this miracle be a reality. Thank you very much for coming.
We might mention if they want to take some of these with them for other people that they think might be interested, maybe they could just do that.
There you go, yeah. Take a couple of the fact sheets, 3, 4, whatever you can use to pass out to help us to be successful. Please do that. Good chat.
All right.
Anything else?
Eat these cookies before you leave.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.